Before we get started, I just want to issue a quick submechanophobia warning. I know that there are people out there that struggle with man-made objects and or machinery in the water. It's a huge phobia for some people. So before we continue, I just want to issue that quick submechanophobia warning. So without further ado, let's get started. Delilah is a animatronic mermaid featured at Freddy's Fantasy Water Park in the Mech Aquarium, along with many other water-based animatronics. Residing in the park's main attraction, the Freddy Sea Life Mech Aquarium, her role in the Tales from the Pizzaplex story Submechanophobia is to act as an introduction to the various obstacles Caden, the protagonist, will face throughout the story. She is also featured on the front cover of the fourth Tales from the Pizzaplex book, and is interestingly the only animatronic that in the story has been referred to with gendered pronouns. Delilah's appearance is described to be vastly different compared to what is depicted on the cover art for Submechanophobia. In the story, she is described collectively with the other underwater animatronics as being old and run down, with chipped paint, spots of rust, and some broken pieces. You wouldn't notice at a first glance. As an individual, she has tangled, faded red hair that waves in the water, with one eye missing and the black socket it was left in fully exposed. She also is described as having crooked arms, but this may be because she was requiring a motor reset at the time. On the front cover art, she has long blonde hair that's colored greenish yellow, with both eyes still present and glowing bright pink inside her head. Her humanoid upper body is light blue, her mermaid tail is green with a scaled pattern. Instead of human ears, she has light blue, somewhat see-through fins that match the fins on her lower arms. She appears to have sharp nail-like claws, exposing wiring on some of her joints, and the lower part of her jaw being completely unhinged and snapped off. There is also several instances of cracks and broken holes in her casing, which is likely a reference to how the underwater animatronics are described in the story. She is decorated with a pearl circlet, seashell, coral, and other such ocean-based necklaces, and what appears to be small pebbles strung very loosely around her waist, with some gold coins attached like charms on a bracelet. In the original scrapped book cover, she is in the background on the left of the image, heavily overlaid with green, which I suppose is supposed to replicate some sort of stagnant water, as these animatronics are not being well maintained, to say the least, so they're just kind of left in this gross, icky water, and I guess that the green is supposed to replicate that. It slightly obscures her base colors, and her humanoid jaw is missing, exposing a animatronic jaw underneath. She's missing both her right eye and her left arm past the shoulder. There is a red staining that looks like a liquid, perhaps intended to be blood, around both her eyes, her exposed jaw, and in a somewhat trail from her inner ear down to what remains of her humanoid jaw. Her eyes and hair are quite light in color, suggesting that they could be blonde and blue respectively. She is depicted as having a strapless, lightly blue, skin-tight article of clothing on the upper body, with two large seashells positioned like the stereotypical seashell bra that Ariel wore in the Disney film The Little Mermaid. She is also wearing a headpiece that resembles a tiara made of seashells. She has pearl earrings on human ears and what looks like pebbles attached to her waist to create a clear divide between the human body and the mermaid tail of the lower body. During the events of the submechanophobia story, Delilah is the first animatronic to break down and does so very early on in the story. When she is noticed to be broken, she has sunk into a rock at the bottom of the mechaquarium in the coral reefs. Her arm crooked, one eye wide, and her mouth agape as if she drowned. As she is the first animatronic to require repairs, she acts as a way to introduce Caden, the protagonist, and his fear of animatronics in the water. As Caden suffers of really bad submechanophobia. Caden successfully resets her motors, she jerks around before going still, and swims around near the bottom of the mechaquarium, like normal once the power is back on. In Caden's nightmare, Delilah appears alongside the other underwater animatronics, swimming much faster than usual and attacking the children that jump into the mechaquarium. Delilah, in particular, is described as ripping a child's arm off. During the climax of the story, Caden swims past her deactivated self as he has to shove her hair out of the way as it gets caught on his goggles. Delilah is later seen activated with the other animatronics as they engage in a brutal fight with the story's antagonist, Martin, as she takes part in basically drowning him, wrapping her hair around Martin's head and covering his face, slowly but effectively smothering Martin to death. After Zeus the sea dragon lost interest in the body of Martin, he would throw the body aside and join Delilah and the rest of the underwater animatronics as they swam deep into the darkness of the murky waters. Now, after the really brutal killing of Martin at the hands and flippers of every single underwater animatronic in the mechaquarium, I'd like to believe that for some strange reason, the animatronics were actually protecting the protagonist. Throughout the course of the story, the animatronics often break down because of how old they are, and this leads to our main character getting in the water despite being very afraid of these animatronics to repair them. And I think that the animatronics are sentient enough to realize that the main character is their friend and he's here to help them, but Martin is not. And so they decided to kill him, effectively saving Caden's life. But with all that being said, this pretty much wraps up my look into the tales from the Pizzaplex character, Delilah the Mermaid. Definitely not the craziest character in the franchise. She doesn't have a whole lot to do within the story that she's featured in, but let's remember, this is one character out of a bunch of nautical underwater themed animatronics at a water park. So there was a lot of different characters for the story to focus on. But with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed. Do take care, have a great night, and I'll see you in the next video.